Okay, you all good? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to the B2C Lead Generation Podcast. You're listening to the B2C Lead Gen Podcast. My name is Daniel Hopewell here with Simon Laney, and this is episode 94, Believe the Partner Hype. So a brand new type of episode today. We're going to introduce you to a new project we've been working on called Partner Hype, and explain what it is, why you should care, and also how you can sign up to it very early doors. So yeah, let's introduce Partner Hype to the world, Simon. What is it?
So Partner Hype is a transparent, open, and secure ecosystem for lead buyers and lead sellers to meet. And we've created the marketplace for them to meet, and then created all the tools that can help them trust each other and keep them connected.
And let's, I think a good place to start with this is to work out why we've done it. What was the sort of the motivation behind it?
So there's been a few, but I guess a big one is the sort of opaqueness. And we've touched on this in plenty of podcasts before. I remember a really early podcast we did where we talked about the dark arts of data trading and things, but there's always been a potential opaqueness. And this is something we've talked about a lot with transparency and how relationships are built and stuff like that. So we build technology that moves data around, and verifies it and whatever with Dateable. But what we really want is a transparent ecosystem where lead buyers and lead sellers know who each other are, or agencies as well, which classes lead sellers. They know what the capabilities are. They know what they're offering, how they can connect with each other. We make tools in Partner Hype so that they can connect with each other. So it's removing that opaqueness and opening up a transparency which currently doesn't exist. Is a big motivating factor. I should also add that we actually built a marketplace quite a few years ago now, built into Dateable, called Dateable Connect. Now, it's a great product. I mean, it works perfectly, right? So advertise the lists ads, they put a bunch of stuff in there that they want. Someone applies to run it, and it sends off notifications, and it connects them, and it sends APIs and purchase orders and all sorts of wonderful things. The problem is it's a closed network. So it's only within Dateable. So basically, you can be a supplier of leads outside of Dateable, but only buyers of leads sat in Dateable could use it. And this really limited its reach. And there was a bunch of other stuff like, we didn't keep track of who was selling leads and who was buying leads and figuring out how to connect them. It was just sort of like a closed marketplace. And so we figured out that like a closed marketplace doesn't work unless you're being like potentially opaque and like you're controlling it. And that removes this idea of transparency. So really what Partner Hype does is like build on that, which is an open marketplace. Like anybody could potentially join it, right? From a lead buyer or a lead seller. Now we put different tools in place that then allow lead buyers and lead sellers to get verified to different levels. Because obviously, people don't want to work with everyone, and they can have it so that like only certain types of lead sellers can apply to ads. So this is a way you can control it. But the great thing is, I don't know if I want to use the word community, but I'm going to anyway. But effectively, it's like community driven because we're not controlling it, right? Like we're building the tools and making the connections and have the technology. But the great thing is, it's the connections between buyers and sellers and who they'll work with, who they want to work with, using the tools in place. But ultimately, it's open, which means there's absolute transparency. So there's no opaqueness. Everything is open. You'll be able to see absolutely everything if you want to. And that is incredibly appealing to everyone, I think, because it just opens the door to a world that doesn't exist right now, which is like the knowledge gap of exactly where data is originated from, who is doing it, who to build relationships with, who's good, who's bad, who the best lead buyers are, who the best lead sellers are, and really easily and quickly being able to make those connections. I mean, for me, I fucking love that idea, right? I don't even buy or sell leads. This is, the idea of it, like this transparency and the openness of it, is really, really been lacking.
Yeah. I think a couple of things to underscore there are, firstly, when we sat down and kind of came up with this idea, I mean, it's been cooking for a while, but when we initially kind of thought this is what the world or the industry or whatever you want to call it needs, we recognise the importance of separating it from data vault as far as opening the network and encouraging transparency. But also, it's not like, well, I suppose I should say what it is there's an element of protection too, which we will touch upon. I guess is where we do come in as a third party, almost like amongst these relationships, and we'll talk about that. But I think it's almost worth splitting that into two, like the benefits for people listening, the benefits to lead buyers using it and lead sellers separately, because it varies depending on to the degree on where you are. But let's begin with the buyers. Like why will buyers benefit from this?
So there's like a multitude of reasons, but what I'll do is try and sort of take it from the top of like almost what happens as a lead buyer. So you're a lead buyer, I don't know, any sort of vertical within B2C, you drop a advert in Partner Hype that looks beautiful, lists all your requirements, like it could be typical CPLs you want to pay, who the audience type is, the type of traffic that you might accept, who you'd ideally work with, all the terms related to you purchasing leads from any other companies, and everything else. So you can lay all that out in one. In the background, we create an API that just connects to you instantly. So you have one single point that data comes in through. So we connect that. It's not even related to anything. It's just so that you're ready to roll. Your advert then goes live and you decide who it's going to be shown to. So within Partner Hype, we have a due diligence process that I won't delve in too much, but the idea is that we like gold stamp people that pass the due diligence process. So these are the cream of the crop, the best lead sellers, the companies that are really generating like great leads for other companies, got perfect consent statements, building relationships with consumers, whatever it is. So the lead buyer can say, well, I didn't want to work with companies like this. And so the companies that pass the due diligence would only be shown the ad, or they can go out to the wider market and say, I'll show it to anyone. And what happens is their ad gets shown to whoever the lead sellers are. They run to apply it. They can leave notes. We can get the ads that they want to run. We can go through the URLs they generate leads on. This all gets passed over to the lead buyer. They decide who they're going to work with. They approve or decline them. They have their own commercial relationship built that's nothing to do with us. And all they do is feed leads in via the API connection that we make. So for the lead buyer, they can basically meet any lead seller on earth, or let's be realistic to begin with, in the UK, in the vertical they're looking to run in. They can track them all against each other. They can see, what they're rejecting, accepting. They've got a single API point. There's no due diligence they'll need to do on top of any unless they want to. So it's a really transparent way of meeting new lead suppliers for them. And we also have another product that we have built that we're currently calling a test, as in ATTEST, might call it something else, which effectively follows the entire customer journey from a landing page someone lands on as a proof of stake saying that lead originated on that landing page and we can prove it. So that's an additional thing they can plug in.
I won't name him, but I was speaking to someone recently who was looking at buying leads a bit more professionally, as he termed it. I was talking to you about things, asking some advice, and I was talking to him about due diligence, and he described it, and I thought it was quite a nice description, as a necessary ball ache. He said by that, he's like, I know I need to do it, but just sometimes I don't have the time to do it. I need to get things up and running ASAP. Like, he's under pressure to sort of constantly get like leads in, sales in. He's like, I don't have time to sort of create big documents, get people to sponsors. So I think this kind of thing for him or for anyone in that boat would be amazing, because it's almost like you have that peace of mind that, you know, when you see someone who's been certified, that's been done. You don't have to do that. It takes away that pressure, that stress, and can get you acting quickly and simply. But like I say, you also get the confidence that you know that the seller's going to be good, right?
Yeah, and you know, we've talked a lot about the need for due diligence and auditing lead suppliers, and you know, it's one of the things that just get rid of who to work with and who not to. Because if you actually start digging below the surface and actually put some time and effort into it, you'd find out. But the idea is, imagine that being taken care of. Like, I'd love that. You know, we don't do it anymore, a software company, but I used to buy and sell millions of leads. If I could get a service like this, I would have absolutely loved it. Like, it would have made my job so much easier. It's absolutely untrue. And on that, it's worth pointing out, this works well for agencies, right? Because a lot of lead buyers, if they're fairly big companies, and I've worked with loads of these, they don't want to work with multiple different partners. They just want one company to run it for them. It takes away their headache, you know, managing multiple partners. They don't want multiple contracts, maybe because it's like a huge, lengthy document where it's gone into a tender. I've done all these sort of things. But what they can do is start meeting lead buyers to actually tender for their business. And then if they want to, you know, meet additional suppliers to add to the roster that they're sending in, and that's their job, it's the absolute perfect way to do it. Because nothing's hidden here, right? There's no blind network. And this is the thing, there's no like, there's no, you know, if you're in this world, which we all are, and I'm assuming most of the people listening to this are, there is no secret source. You know, like there is, it's all there is the stuff that's hidden from you. So when this can be opened up, or it is now going to be opened up, we can actually get down to some real work about what creates great leads, what makes great lead buyers, how can we help lead buyers make better decisions, who are the best lead generators, the lead generation partners to partner with. It becomes less of this commercial element of trying to like hide things. It becomes much more about how can we genuinely make connections with real people from a lead partner feeding into a lead buyer. And you know, that is what's been sorely missing in the entire lead generation ecosystem.
I think one of the most frequent questions that people ask is often, how can I find new buyers or suppliers?
Yeah, I mean,
and
I get it every day. Yeah.
How can I find good ones? I can identify them. So the great thing is, essentially, this is could be an answer to both of those things. You just get to Partner Hype and sort it out, and they'll be there when it's all up and running. I think you said before, we will safely assume everyone listening to this podcast is either a lead buyer or a lead seller.
I don't know, did your mum listen to it?
I was going to say, other than that's my mum. If you're not listening to this, I've literally no idea what you're doing here. So let's assume that we've done that. I've covered the buyers there. But I think I can, you know, almost hear the lead sellers who are listening asking the question, how do I become certified? What's the criteria for getting to that point where people are going to like, you know, we're going to stamp them and say, right, this person's trusted. How do they achieve that? And also, what are the benefits to them for doing that?
Yeah, so I think the benefits are, imagine meeting new clients like that. So let's dare to dream for a moment, right? Like, Partner Hype it's kind of like it's alpha launched at the minute. It's like a handful of people have even been inside the guts of it outside of anyone associated with it, which is like 3-4 people. And so, you know, it's like a dream at the moment, you know, until I'm a big believer this, like anyone can have ideas, but, you know, actually doing it is the thing. So we've built all the tools and we've done everything else, but let's dare to dream for a moment that we end up getting loads of lead buyers on it, because why wouldn't you? Like it makes complete sense, right? And now as a lead generator or a lead seller agency, or, you know, big lead aggregator, you go in there and you can instantly see who buys leads. You can create a connection to them and say, we'd love to be able to help you grow your sales channel, whatever it is. Here's what we do. Here's our profile. This is how we do it. This is how we think we can help you. And that is just like on tap. And then for the lead buyer, they can see it. And then the lead seller also gets a single API to deliver into that will make simple, right? So rather than dicking around and sending it off to the marketing operations team or going to the front end developer or sitting getting Zapier and whatever else, is like just post into that API. And what we'll do is make sure that we webhook responses back to you. Or if you can't take webhooks, we have a synchronous API that we can keep open for like 20, 30 seconds that's still done via post. Or if you can't do that, and for whatever reason, we can send you daily drops of rejections or weekly, monthly, whatever it needs to be. So suddenly you've got this meeting point that you can go in. And bear in mind, the commercial model, which we won't even run in beta stage, it's just going to be totally free. But the commercial model we're potentially looking at is that lead sellers get all this for free, right? You get a single API you can deliver to, you can meet your clients, you can then certify yourself via a due diligence process to say, check me out, I'm the best lead generator on the planet, within reason. Here's like, I'm going to get the gold certificate, I've got the stamp of approval, whatever else. And that be used as like a mechanism to work with the best lead buyers. When you actually think of this, right, like maybe I'm going mad or I'm dreaming too much of it. What this is just really doing is opening up a world that exists already, but nobody knows it exists. Well, only the people involved know it exists. But what we have the opportunity to create here as a community between lead buyers and lead sellers is this ecosystem that just runs on trust, results, the best working with the best, people that get proven, everything else. And this is the way it should be. It's like any other industry. There's few industries that are like lead generation where there's a lot of opaqueness and blind networks and people hiding things and secrecy and stuff. And we have the opportunity to open that up. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's, something I've always thought should be done, and we've always thought should be done.
I think as you were speaking then, something crossed my mind that potentially in the games maybe will be idealistic, but let's aim for that and see if we can achieve it afterwards. But I think it's something of a kind of a clear sort of line drawn saying this is a way of doing things, it's potentially a new way of doing things. And it's a bit of a demarcation between a certain type of lead generating buyer and maybe a darker type of lead generator buyer. And I think a lot of that centers around the idea of like the transactional element of lead generation and maybe how it used to be. Because I don't think that will fly in quite the same way, because the more you sort of work in this kind of way, in this transparent nature, the more you can earn trust, you can show your trust, you can see how I've done this many interactions, then you can get more. So what it does is it gives a bit of prevalence to the people who are actually been doing this for a while, continue to do it. And then there's people who are sort of like just entering the market, but like have no intention of actually doing a decent job. You just want to make a quick buck, and they will suffer slightly. And I think that's quite a nice way of viewing that for both good lead generators and obviously the lead buyers to think of it like that, because the ones who will succeed are the ones who are really sort of going into this properly.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another point in this, which is, as far as I know, and so I'd love someone to get in contact with me and prove this different, there are no open ecosystems or marketplaces for lead generation, right? B2C lead generation, definitely not B2B, but B2C lead generation. There are closed marketplaces where it's controlled rosters of buyers and sellers. And basically you have to be, it's a bit like what I was talking about with Databall Connect that we built. I mean, we built this years ago. I think it was 2017, something like that. Literally is an entire project piece of tech, a massive machine doing all of this, but you had to be a client of Databall. You have to be a client of anything. And so this is the whole point. There is no one has any vested interest. Like, obviously we have a vested interest that more and more people use it, but the reality is, outside of the lead buyers and lead sellers, there is no commercial arrangements for us benefiting in any way from anyone using it or doing anything. And yes, we have the due diligence process, but that's just a set process that we built that everyone can go through. And it's completely and utterly transparent and open. You can see what it is. Doesn't mean you're going to pass it. It just means you can know what the questions are.
Actually, I think it's an important point to make, that it isn't easy or won't be easy to pass it. I think that's important to stress that.
Yeah, I mean, if it was easy, like,
there's no value in it.
Yeah, what would be the point? But no, what we're really trying to prove is, like, okay, this company have taken this due diligence test and they've proven themselves to be like a gold standard lead seller or lead partner. And so when you're working with them, when we get all the consent statements, the privacy policies, everything, we go through them, the journeys, the ads, referrals, you can, like, bet your bottom dollar these guys are going to be doing a really good job. Now, as we all know, and we've talked about it loads of times on this podcast, there are a lot of people not like that, but they will claim to be like that. This is just an easy way to sort the wheat from the chaff for that. And I actually quite love the idea that the guys that are like really good lead sellers that could pass the test, they actually get put up into another bracket. And what happens is, we don't then want to, like, tread down on anyone that hasn't. We want them to rise up to that standard as well. So what we're actually trying to do is, like, improve the ecosystem from that perspective. And I don't, we're just at the beginning of this journey. So, as we go on, maybe it becomes a thing where we try and get people to rise up to that. And it's, how can we help them do it? So rather than being like, it's them versus them, it's these guys and these guys, we're going to help to try and get them up there.
I'm going to end the short by asking to explain how people get started at the very early stages for this. But before I do, I think it's important just ourselves to be ultimately transparent. You said there that the commercial element of it isn't entirely in play yet, but the lead sellers, it will hopefully, it will be a free process for them, providing they meet central criteria. But for the buyers, like, basically people are going to want to know how much it's going to cost them to do this. Like, how would it work for the buyers?
It's just like pennies per lead. So all we're thinking is like a volume play where we'll have like a minimum amount that you commit to. So I don't want to give any numbers because as you can imagine, it's one of these things where when we actually get some real activity going in there, we'll start looking at it. But let's imagine that there's like a minimum amount of, okay, I will commit to 200 leads coming through this system, and for those 200 leads I will pay I don't know, 40p per lead, and then that could just extrapolate upwards and the price go down. So the value of the lead matters not to us. We don't want to get involved in that. There's no, we're not interested in what the CPL is, anything like that. So you could be buying leads at £1,000 each, and you're still going to be paying, and you'll say, I'll put 10,000 leads through the system and you will pay, whatever that works. I don't know. We have to look at it, 5p per lead. So we don't get involved in any of the commerciality. It's just a fee to do all the due diligence. We've obviously built a system in itself, created all these connections, build the API out, and then within the API, we also will have like a bunch of stuff that we'll do just as standard, like all the reformatting, standardization, normalization of data, the reformatting that gets delivered, maybe like a standard dedupe and stuff. We'll handle all the feedbacks and create the connections between them. Ultimately, I mean, I've looked at this, right, and gone over the pricing and stuff. It will be fucking incredible value for money. Of that, I am absolutely positive.
I think it was just, I'm asking this question trying to sort of remove myself from the process and trying to put myself in the position of the listeners. But I think it's worth clarifying the model we're trying to work to, because essentially that makes us, like you said, agnostic to price.
Yeah, and that's really what you have to be in this scenario. Like, and yeah, we basically want to create an atmosphere where we can almost, we're not removed, because obviously it's like technology, but we're not involved in it. You know, all we're looking at is the volume of leads going through a system where we've created a partnership between people, and then we're like, you know, charging like literally minute pennies to the dollar going through it. Thing is, I say all of this, you know, well, and a lot of people listening to this will know things change. So you never say never, but at the moment, because we just want to keep it really simple, right? The aim is build a transparent, open ecosystem where lead buyers and lead sellers can easily meet and just get business done. And we provide the tools, mechanisms to really help drive that forward. You know, when it's when we're getting to like a mass of users, there'll be, you know, much more insight into the sort of granular detail behind it. But you know, what we've talked about kind of makes sense so far.
I think that's pretty clear. And if it's not clear, then you can certainly talk to us, so we can, you know, try and clarify. And obviously, we've got the site that's just gone live, which explains it in probably better detail than we've done today, but it's taken the time to make it very clear and explain how it happened. So I think at this point, it's probably worth ending this by asking people listening, how do they sign up? How do they get started in the early alpha beta stages of this?
So you'll see if you just go to the site now, partnerhype.com, it's got just like a type form thing, which is just us collecting leads, basically, of people that want to sign up. So we'll be in contact with all those people. I've started the process yesterday, actually, to get them to send them their actual app and said, can you sign up to this? And then just give your feedback, which has been really positive so far. And then right now we're just in the process of getting like a few buyers listed on there, so that the people that are signing up can actually start applying for things. And what we're doing internally is just working out like the rough edges and stuff, and removing it. So in short, sign up to that type form on the website, and we'll be in touch. And be over the next week or two, we'll start onboarding people, looking for feedback, and actually trying to get some like transactions done through the system, so lead buyers and lead sellers can start meeting. Cool.
I think that's a good place to wrap this up. And it was a slightly different podcast to usual. We don't normally push things in this way, but I think it was a good opportunity to introduce people to it, and hopefully they will see there's massive value for both buyers and sellers if they get on board. And yeah, hopefully they'll be pleased with it.
And anyone got any feedback, we'd absolutely love to hear it. And yeah, this will probably be the last time we ever talk about this on this podcast. We just go back to, you know, ideas, fireside chats, getting guests on, talking about bigger ideas, maybe getting into granular nitty-gritty. So anyone wants to get involved or has any ideas, any suggestions, even if it's just to, you know, give me a call and say, this idea is a pile of shit, I'd love to hear it. Maybe not in those words, but
okay. I felt like I ended it quite strongly. You ended it with a pile of shit, but I feel like that's typical. Yeah, let's wrap it up there. That was episode 94, Believe the Partner Hype. Thanks for listening to the B2C Lead Generation podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe to hear more from those at the very cutting edge of the lead gen world.